your mind, what does this degree consist of, and what kind of benefits would you receive from this degree? So to get us started, we're going to discuss 6 subjects. Those subjects are architecture, solid modeling, machine engineering, descriptive geometry, structure engineering, and pipe drafting. Architecture. Architecture has been available since the Egyptian era. You have they were able to make different architectures, different models, different structures. We have the Pyramid of Giza. The Pyramid of Giza has been here for eras. Very popular with the Egyptians, very popular with the history, and very hard to build. We have the Temple of Horus. The Temple of Horus has many structures, and with the architecture, you have to have many dimensions, many ways of building it. Even the Romans have had architecture in their time. We have the Ark of Constantine. We also have the Roman Colosseum. Everybody knows the Roman Colosseum. Well, all of these monuments made by the Egyptians and the Romans are all made by architects of that era. Now what you see here is the first step of what the modern day architects have to do. We have a picture of a house. We have the pictures of the house and the front elevation. We have the dimensions of the restroom, the bedrooms, the closets, living room, bathrooms. Everything has been dimensioned to its T. Everything has to be dimensioned correctly. We have the example of the inside elevations. Inside elevations consist from the bottom of the floor to the top of the cabinet, from the top of the cabinet to the top of the wall. Everything has to be dimensioned correctly. If it's not, the builders will start building the cabinets. They'll start building the furniture wrong. For us, now, since we only have limited time, 10 minutes, to discuss all of these subjects, we have to move on. Our next subject is solid modeling. Now, for us to understand what solid modeling is, we have to know the definition. But since the definition is a little bit too hard to understand, I'm going to give everybody a brief description of what it is. It's mostly a solid object with mass, and we have examples with pictures. We have a solid model of a car. We have another solid model of the Nissan. Now here's a prime example of what modern day solid modeling looks like composed with machine. You have the mass, and then you have the section of the mass. This will be the full section. That will be the section mass. We have the full mass, the section mass. Here's another one, the spline and the flangeal mass. We've gone through architecture, solid modeling. Now it's time for machine. The machine definition is plain out, have to do with machine. But for the steps to know machine, we have to draw the machine parts using the right dimensions. Then we have to apply the tolerances and the allowance. Once we do that, we bring all the parts together for the assembly. We have some examples right here. We have some examples of right here, the single parts. We have the clearance, we have the undercuts, we have the dimensions. We have all the dimensions for all the parts. Now everything you see right here, you're able to see everything in one piece, which is the assembly. The assembly will consist of every part that was drawn. With every number, it will identify what it is. Now, for us to move on, we only have limited time. We're going to go on to descriptive geometry. descriptive geometry is the ability to take one point and turn it into many points. Mostly just take the ability to analyze points, lines, and planes. Now, I'll give you an example. If you had a six-sided dice, and if you took a marker and pinpointed on that dice, and if I told you that I will take that point and tell you where it is on a 12-sided dice, 18, or maybe 1,000-sided dice, would you believe me? Well, the way that it works is simple. You have your plane for the front, then you have the top. Once you go to the right-hand side, you have the side view, which is the edge view. And then we have our bottom again. Then we have our edge view again. Now, it's a little hard to understand, but let me give you an example of the dice that I was talking about. Here's a dice. Can you try to figure that out? Descriptive geometry has to do consists of views, lines, and planes. Okay? Now, every side right here would consist of the other side and with the edge. Now, this dice right here would consist of this right here. It's a little hard to understand, but since we have limited time, I have to go on. I'm sorry. Our next subject that we're going to be going to is structure engineering. Now, structure engineering is a basic for support, and it can resist the load of what it is about. So basic definition for structure is the design, and it has to go hand to hand with architecture. The reason why I say it has to go hand with architecture is because when the architects had to build the houses, when the Egyptians had to build the pyramids or the Temple of Giza on the land, they had to have the structure of the land also. Now, since we have limited time, I had to cut structure engineering short. But all of these different types of architecture all have to do with structure. Architecture and structure is hand to hand. You can never do architecture without structure. Mostly, you cannot do structure without architecture. Now, since we're out of time, I'll discuss the benefits of drafting and design. If any of your wives wanted you to build the perfect house for her, guess what? You're in luck. You can, because you'll know how to do architecture, the structure would help you out, and if they don't believe you on how the house would look like, you can make a solid model for that house. You get good job benefits. You can never go wrong without good job benefits. And they're always looking for people. They're always looking for people to build houses. They're always looking for people to build almost anything, since it's expanding. Now, since that's all we have, I just want to go over with what I went over. I just want to talk about what I went over. Went over architecture, on how it builds houses, monuments, the Egyptians and the Romans. Solid modeling, you saw examples of the cars. You saw examples of different solid objects. The machine, I was able to show you a prime example of what machine parts look like, single and as the assembly. Descriptive geometry, points, lines, and planes. Take a six-sided dice, 12, 18, all the way till it hits 1,000, and you can still pinpoint on where that dot is, even with the 1,000-sided dice. Structure and architecture have to go hand to hand. Like I said, architecture you cannot go without structure, and structure you cannot go without architecture. Since I'm out of time, that's the end of my presentation.